Okay.
Wanna buy a new car, but the price ain't right. Ain't that cold? Be a downside cheaper. Yes, it would. Start riding the bike. Listen, they're making milk out of powder. Yeah, they are. Got the babies crying. Poor baby, this is what that stuff is. Rent's going up higher. Yes, it is. Got the parents lying. Lord, it's a real.
Okay, you guys, you know what time it is. It's time for Spitting Sports with your host, Marlon Jackson. And as always, I have with me my sidekick and my co-host, Mr. Gary Hughes. Today's topics we're going to discuss are the coaches' impacts on the game and the effect that it has on the team and the industry and the organizations. So with that being said, I'm gonna let Hughes take that one because he's been a coach before and he kind of understands both aspects and both sides of it. So Hughes, what do you think a biggest thing is for, or the biggest obstacle is for a coach to lead a team to victories or championships, or just to recreate the structure of an industry or a franchise and help them turn around their team or that season or whatever's going on?
Well, thank you, Marlon. To start things off, man, before I jump into that, man, just good. It's good to know that LeBron James is out the playoffs. Um, he's a crybaby. He gave up on his team. Some people are going to say that he was injured. He had a high ankle sprain, what they call it, strain, high
Yeah.
ankle strain. And he wasn't going 100%. And then he lost Anthony Davis, but there's no excuse. If he's supposed to be the GOAT, some of y'all think he's the greatest of all time, then he need to be have a better showing, even in a loss. Not running back on defense, not going to shake hands with who was that they lost to? Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, Phoenix. They shook hands with Chris Paul, his best friend, and the
Right.
play.
That's horrible. That's horrible. Your thoughts on that, Marlon, before we jump in?
I think, man, it just shows a lack of, respect because you're supposed to be the greatest of all time. Whether if you win or lose, or whatever circumstances happen, man, I feel like you got to hold your head up and just come back next year stronger, man. I mean, to be honest, because how many times Hughes has, Jordan lost, or Jordan lost a playoff game, or Jordan, lost a close game to get their team over the hump, man. You don't ever see him, whining about it. He just didn't he have a game, Hughes, where he dropped 47 points with the flu or something, man, and then still went out there and played his heart out because he wanted to show his team that he wasn't gonna give up on them. So I guess you just got to have that mindset to just say, hey, if I'm the greatest, I got to play in any circumstance with what the team or what I have, and go with it.
Right.
And I'm a huge Lakers fan, and I just was disappointed about the fact. I'm not upset that we lost. I'm just upset at the fact that everybody's now holding each other accountable for the loss. You know what I'm saying? If you got injuries, you got to have the next guy step up and come, because injuries are part of the game. So you got to be able to come into that and overcome it, and get better at it. That's all, and just come back next year stronger. That's all
Right.
you
Right.
can do.
Right. Which leads to the coaches because I don't even know who the Lakers coach is.
Frank Vogel is their coach, but like you said, you've been a coach yourself, Hugh, so you kind of can understand like how a coach's role with it. And do you think that he's a coach that can fit that team to help them turn around that the next season, or the coach of the future?
Um, I'm not gonna say no, but I'm not gonna say yes. I just think he's just an average coach. Um, of course, the coach's vision and how they feel like the team should be modeled. It's a direct reflection of their players. Like for instance, some coaches are they're more defensive oriented, and you can see that by the way the teams play. Then you got some coaches in the NBA. They don't even care about defense at all. They just want to score points, and that's evident. So coaches are in the NBA. It's a little tough because you're coaching probably 12 of the greatest players currently in the world. So they all are great. They talented, even the ones on the bench. I mean, they just didn't get to the NBA sitting on the bench in college. Somewhere they were special. So that's got to be a challenge to NBA coaches to deal with the egos. As much as trying to put their game plan in place and trying to run practices, and also they got the owner, the GM is in their ear. About being successful. So you want to have the right coach in place. A team, what they call those coaches that the players like a player's coach. I think those type of coaches probably go a little bit farther in today's NBA. Because reality, man, how much are you teaching these guys, Marlon?
Yeah.
How much are they really learning from you that they haven't heard before? So as an NBA coach, are you doing more coaching or are you doing more managing? What do you think, Marlon?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you do have those coaches that will sit with you at home or come and visit you and talk to you and see how your personal life is outside of the court. And then you do have those coaches that are just there just to be there and just letting the players, play the best way they know how to play and take what they can. If they lose, they lose. If they win, they win. But at least they're there to, I guess you can say, enjoy the benefits of that team for doing it. Because if you look at it, there's only a few coaches in history that I follow that I feel like were a coach's coach. And that was Phil Jackson, who I always thought was one. Those rings he got with Jordan and Kobe. I mean, those guys couldn't have been superstars without Phil Jackson. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there would have been any other coach to coach them to win those championships because he was always a mentor and he was always around superstars that, he watched that he could instill into that. And if you watch the documentaries that Phil Jackson has had with Kobe and Jordan, they'll always tell you Phil is the type where he's humble, but he, knows what he's doing. That versus a coach that's just there and letting them play how they want to play and then just say, okay, we're just going to make buckets and go play defense. I don't care if whatever you do. And that's how I feel the Lakers head coach was. I just feel like you said, he was out coached for one and he gave up. If you looked at his demeanor, he just was like, well, it is what it is. We won a championship last year. We're back at it. We had injuries. He's making excuses. And you know how it is, Hughes, as a coach. If you're not impacting your players and giving them the best strategies to win as a team, then I don't think you should be in that position to coach. That's just my opinion. I've never coached, but, watching people coach, I feel like that was always my biggest thing. If my coach is in my life or in my corner to where I know that if I have a bad game, he'll come and lean on me and say, hey, Mon, I know you had a bad game, man, but, there'll be better games. There'll be more games and there'll be better days. We're going to work on some things that I think you need to do to get better to help your game and craft it. Then, I can respect that. And like I said, some of these NBA coaches do that where they'll sit down with their players and say, hey, what do you think is the best way of doing it? I think we should do it like this because this is what I'm watching while we're playing. Your way is working, but my way is better. And I'm not saying we're going to kick your way out, but we're going to add to it so that we can, become a better team. And like you said, Monty Williams was the perfect example. You gave Monty Williams all credit because how long has Monty Williams been in the league? Like you said, he was about 17 years, almost 17, 18 years. So Monty Williams is what? Had his highs, had his lows, had his ups, had his downs. And look how he's coming out now. Now he's coaching the number 2 team in the NBA, in the playoffs. and he's doing a hell of a job, you know. And his players will tell you they respect him, and he respects his players because they listen to what he's been through and understand that he has a goal in mind and a purpose in mind, a game plan in mind that's going to work to win games. So I feel like that's a good coach. But then you have them coaches who just, you know, demand the greatness out of you, you know. And you seen Larry Bird and Michael Jordan try to coach. How do you think that turned out? That was just
No, they too good to be coaches, man. They too perfect. Because so they expect everybody else to be to go hard. And Larry Bird wasn't that bad of a coach. I mean, he
What
took
do you think about your boy Isaiah Thomas? Do you think he was a good coach when he was coaching at the time too?
no. Most great players don't make great coaches. Why is that? Why you think that is?
Like you said, they demand you to play the same way that they did when they were playing, and you know they demand you to be the best that they were, and you know there's only one of that era. You know you're gonna find that one person that accepts each other. Well, I will say a lot of role players or a lot of six men are great head coaches. Like your boy from the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr, is a hell of a head coach for the Warriors because look at who he played with. He played with Michael Jordan. He played with Tim Duncan, David Robinson. He's played with Larry Nance and those guys. And he understood that he wasn't the best player on that team, but he knew that I could teach these guys the work ethic that the best players did so that I can instill it into these guys so that they can become the best players. Exactly. That's how the role players were. You know, that's how I looked at it. Even when you look at your boy Tyronn Lue. I mean, I don't say Tyronn Lue is a bad coach because he's only been in the league for a few years, but I mean, I can't really give Tyronn Lue credit for that championship he won with the Cavs because it's just like you just got there your first year. It was LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. You know what I'm saying? You got there, LeBron's basically, like you said, a player's coach. So he was the one who kind of coached that team. You were just there just to fill in the gap for the coach that they fired. Right. Now, if Tyronn Lue can take the Clippers to the finals and win it, I can respect him as a coach to say that that's a coach that I can, do. But Tyronn Lue doesn't seem like he's really into, doing it. And a lot of coaches I see are just there just to be there. You know, they're like a babysitter. You know, they get their hours, they get paid for their hours, and then they go home and come back the next day and do it again. And I just don't think you can win championships like that, having a coach like that. Because if you letting the players do what they want and you letting coaches do what they want, the system's not going to work. So let me ask you this, Hughes. How do you think that, you become successful as a coach if, your mindset is already made up of how, you think the team is going to be ran or how you think the team should be ran? Because do you think that work ethic works when it comes to coaches and players relationships, or do you think that it kind of just, flattens the whole, attitude in the locker room, the attitudes on the court?
Yeah, I think it flattens the attitude in the locker room on the court. Because you need to put your as a coach, I always pride myself on putting my team in the best position to win. And the best position to win is running through your top two players, understanding their strengths, what they do well, and what they don't do well, and run with what they do well, and then everybody else will follow.
Do you think that there's like some issues where it's like some players are, and as a coach, where some players feel like they're being overlooked by the star players that's on the team because they feel like they can contribute just as well as the stars that you have?
Yeah, it's up to coach to realize that you got somebody on the bench that is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ever leave anybody on the bench that I might have a hint. It might be a hint that they actually might be okay. They might be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of coaches don't trust that instinct. So,
and why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because it's just like they're comfortable in the role that they have and the players that got them there, or do you just think it's just in general just hey, like I'm not going to change up anything because it's been working the way it's been working, so why switch it up now?
Right. The best coaches change with the times, and they're versatile. They're not stuck. They don't have blinders on. This is how I always did it. I've been coaching like this since 1982.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's always worked. and that's probably not true.
Mhm.
You gotta adapt to the times. You gotta adapt to the type of students or student athletes that you have. But because if you don't, you're not going to be successful.
Well, I always look at it like I feel like, and maybe you can piggyback off this is the egos. How do you guys, maintain the egos of your players? Because a lot of players have those egos where it's like it's hard to keep in check or keep intact because they feel like you can't tell them nothing because they're already as good as they are.
Yeah, so you gotta. That's a good question, man. I think nobody did it better than Phil Jackson. You got to be able to grab their mind and hold it, and then you can mold it.
Mm-hmm.
To how you want your plays to be run.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, a lot of coaches don't do that on any level.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because even if you look at the NFL and you look at those NFL head coaches, a lot of those games aren't won by the coaches. A lot of those games are won by the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator.
Right.
The guy upstairs giving them the plays. I don't think it's won by the head coach because I've never seen a head coach. And well, maybe you're kind of older than me, Hugh. So it's kind of maybe you've seen it, but I haven't really seen too many head coaches that'll pull their player to the side and get in their case. Now that I've seen in my 27 years, but NFL coaches from me watching the old what do you call them NFL what are those things it's a show yeah hardwood classics like they would show you where they show you the ones with the players and stuff where the coaches like they used to always say like the top coaches in the NFL was like Mike Ditka or Jimmy Johnson or Bill Parcells or
Right.
Nick Brunell, and it's like I don't know. He was like I said, I haven't been around them, to watch them coach, but I'm guessing because they had the team that was with it and the team that helped them get over it is what made them good coaches. I don't think that maybe if they would have fit into a different team scheme that they would be those greatest of all time coaches. But that's just me. But I don't know. I'm guessing there's something that they did that worked for those teams to win those championships or make it to the Super Bowl. Because like you said, Bill Parcells was what? He was the coach of the Giants and the Redskins or something, if I'm not mistaken. And then he got a couple of Super Bowls with them.
Yep. He did 2 years with the Giants.
Yeah.
And he had a Super Bowl, I think in I can't remember, but he got 2 rings with him.
Yeah, I think it was like the 89 season. I don't know if it was 8. I know it was in the 80s. I just don't remember when. But I always said Jimmy Johnson was a good head coach because when he helped Dallas get those 2 Super Bowls in the 90s, he was a good coach. But then, like you said, he bumped heads with ownership. And ownership, I kind of feel like it starts at the top of the food chain because if you don't have a good owner and the owner is just hiring anybody because it's cheaper money to hire this coach and put him into that thing, I kind of feel like then they're losing the purpose of what coaching really means because there's no way that the Bus family would have put Frank Vogel into that position knowing darn well that, he doesn't have any experience into winning championships the right way. He only won the championship because he had the talent on that team.
Right.
When you look at when he was coaching India and the Pacers, what did the India Pacers do? Every year they made the playoffs and they got beat in the first round. And it was just like if you were one of those great coaches, you could have got Indiana over the hump. But look what happened. Everybody was arguing and fighting. Nobody was listening to you. Paul George and Roy Hibbert and Danny Granger and George Hill and David West was doing what they wanted. There was no communication on the court. Everybody was looking discombobulated, and you're just sitting there with your arms like this, leaning over with your head down, trying to figure out what to do next. I just feel like once you give up as a coach, you're giving up on your team, and I just don't feel like any coach should give up on a player. I mean, like you said, Hughes, you've coached, so you've never given up on your players. Even if y'all get blown out by 20 or 30 points, you're still there like, hey, we got our butts kicked, but we know what to do differently next time.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta bring them in. They feel good about who they are. You might have to break them down throughout the game, or if we're talking about practice. Mm-hmm. But when they leave, they should leave feeling great about who they are. They should leave actually feeling better about who they are than when they actually arrive. That's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you. That's why I agree with you because, like I said, you come from that coaching aspect, so you know. And then you're always a part of your players' lives and everything else because that's another good thing. What keeps a good chemistry and a good championship team with you is when you're involved in your players' lives on and off the court because that lets them know that they have somebody to turn to when there's issues or when there's something going on that keeps their mind right for them focusing on the game or focusing on that task.
Right.
You know, if you don't have that, and you feel like you don't have nobody in your corner, you're not going to give your 100% all into that game. You know what I'm saying? Because your mind is somewhere else instead of where it's supposed to be. And I've seen games like that too. And you're a coach and you've seen players like that. You know, a player might be upset about something that happened outside of the offside of the court. And you're like, hey, you know, I know, you know, it's bothering you, but, you know, let's focus on the game. And then when we get done with the game, we can go back and discuss it because, you know, I know, you know, it's not where your head is at right now, but we need you here so that we can lock in and win this championship or win this playoff game so we can get to the next round. You know, that's a coach I can respect. But all respect, I think Monty Williams should have won Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
Why you say that?
I feel like he should have only because of the obstacles that he's had to overcome as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he's always been on the team to where they get rid of him because they feel like he can't produce. It's not that he can't produce. It's because that team is already set on how they on their ways of how they feel like it should be coached. And nobody wants to listen to somebody that comes into a new atmosphere and tries to demand something from them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's like you. If you're demanding something from your players and you're not giving them what you're demanding, and then everybody's looking at you like, well, this is not working. How can I respect you? And look how far we're getting. We're not even making it past the regular season. Like every year we get to the playoffs and then we get beat and blown out. I mean, how can I respect that? We need to do something differently. We need to change coaches. And I just feel like at the end of the day, if you're going to be a great coach and you're going to do what you need to do, you got to gain the trust of your players. If you don't gain the trust of your players, you're never going to win the championship or you're never going to get over that hurdle. And owners are so quick to fire coaches because they think that coaches are to blame for the team chemistry. I don't think it is. I think it's more of the lack of leadership that's on the team. You know, because if you don't have that coach that can lead your team and, you know, and can demand respect from his guys, it's like being a teacher. It's like, you know, that's a perfect example. You're a teacher. If you let your children or your students, you know, run your class and you're supposed to be the leader of that class, how do you expect to gain trust from anybody if they feel like they can come in and walk all over you and you know, do what they want as a student? You know, you as a teacher got to be able to say, hey, this is my classroom. This is how it's going to be ran. This is how it's going to be done. If you don't like how it's going to be done, there's the door, you know, but this is what I demand, and this is how we're going to do it. I could be your best friend, and I could be your worst enemy, but you decide. You know, I know what's going to work. I know how we're going to do things, and this is how it's going to be done. That will gain respect from anybody. They may not like you for it, but they'll respect you at the end of the day because it's not about like.
You're right. Who's the greatest coach, NBA coach of all time?
I mean, to be honest,
besides Phil Jackson.
Besides Phil, my opinion, I mean, I got two of them in mind. I would say either Byron Scott was one because I've always liked the way that Byron Scott's coached, you know, only because it's just like he's played with the greatest and he's coached the greatest and he's never had an issue of stepping into a spotlight where he knows that he can demand respect. And the second one, Greg Popovich. The reason why I say Greg Popovich is because Greg Popovich, you know him. Greg Popovich is a one-word answer guy, but as a coach, you know, it was something he did right to help them Spurs win them 5 championships in 15 years. So, I mean, I got to give him his respect for that. You know, I don't know what he's doing in that locker room or what he's saying to these guys, but it's working somehow. And to me, that's a hell of a formula. You know, I don't think anybody could fill his shoes once he retires from San Antonio and somebody takes over. But I don't know what it is. Tim Duncan's never said anything bad about him. Tony Parker hasn't said anything bad about him. And like you said, all those guys, except for Tim Duncan, were all, you know, what do you call utility guys. They weren't
Right.
really, Hall of Famers, but they worked in that system he had. So
Right.
it's something he's doing.
You right. You are
Who do you
so
think?
right.
Who do you think besides Phil Jackson were top coaches that were kind of great?
Like you said, Pop, San Antonio Spurs.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this: how you think about you think Coach K could be successful as an NBA coach?
Not really, and the reason why I'm saying is because college basketball and NBA basketball are two different types of style of coaching. See, when you coach when you coach college players know that they're not going to get much playing time if they argue with you or if they disagree with you about certain things. When you come to the NBA and try to tell a star player that you're cutting his minutes, you already lost that war, And I think Coach K is just the person that he's just there, and he was put into a great system, and that system worked for him. But I don't think he will work into a system as an NBA coach, only because it's a lot faster, it's a lot more egos to deal with, and more ownership issues. And I don't think that dealing with Duke, he didn't really have to deal with a lot of ownership and behind the scenes presidents and all that stuff.
Right.
Now, when you go into the NBA, you're dealing with owners, you're dealing with players, you're dealing with presidents, you're dealing with the commissioner, you're dealing with all that. So all that stuff that you think is gonna work, all them plays and stuff you think is gonna work in that college, it's not gonna work in the NBA because everybody's already seen it and they know what to expect. But when he was in Duke, nobody knew what to expect with the lineup that he would put in or the scheme fit that he would run, and that's what made Duke so successful. But I think in the NBA, they didn't see everything that's happened, and I think that they'll be prepared for it. So he would have to come out differently, and I don't think that he would be able to handle that pressure of coming out differently.
Okay.
NBA players.
Okay.
But I do think he was a hell of a college coach, and I'm not taking that away from him. Even though I don't like Duke, I'm a Tar Heel fan, but I still feel that he was a hell of a college coach. I don't think there was any college coach better than Coach K. That's just my opinion.
What about Bobby Knight?
You seen Bobby Knight, man. Bobby Knight would throw chairs and and yell at the referees, man, and kick stuff, man. But I guess some players, they received it in a way and they understood Bobby Knight, and other players were just like, you know what? We know why Coach Knight was the way he was because, he demanded greatness. He knew we were great. So we needed just to believe it ourselves. And,
Right.
And I think that's what worked for Bobby Knight because when you yell at them, I think, like you said, it's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. So I feel like there's people receive things differently. And I guess, Bobby Knight felt like the best way his players could receive him coaching is by him doing what he did. So I guess that worked for him. But I think that would work for him. I mean, I think he would be a good coach if he coached the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, because they didn't give a damn about anything or anybody. And I think that's the same feel that Bobby Knight had. He would love to have that because he was like, oh, you close on them? Good. I wanted you to do that. And the next time, break his ankle, step on his foot, punch him in the gut. I just think, like you said, I think Chuck Daly was okay because he was in another system that worked. But I don't think he was a good coach either. You know what I'm saying? A lot of those coaches that won championships, man, I don't think that they were the reason why. I mean, if you look at what's that coach from Kansas City, Andy Reid. I don't think Andy Reid is a good coach, man.
You don't like Andy Reid?
It's not that I don't like him. I just don't think that he's a coach. I mean, he had hell of players, and the players is what got him to the championship and his offensive coordinator, but I don't think it was him personally.
Right.
Look at him when he was playing with your boy with the Eagles back in the day when they had your boy Donovan McNabb and T.O. and Brian Westbrook and Brian Dawkins. Look at that. He took that team to the Super Bowl once. You got a team like that and they've only made it to the Super Bowl once? Come on. And then the next time you get to the Super Bowl is what? 14 years later? I mean,
Uh-huh.
come on, man, that's unacceptable as a head coach, especially when you got that talent around you. It's something that you're doing that's just not working.
Right. You right.
Same thing with what's that boy from Now I will say this. Tony Dungy is one of my favorite coaches in the NFL because Tony
Right.
Dungy demanded respect from his guys, and he knew that you weren't gonna go in there and bully him and to change things. And he was able to pick his team that he wanted.
Right.
He was able to pick his staff. It worked, and he was able to pick his scheme and players, and it worked. That's what I respect about Tony Dungy, because Tony Dungy will pull you, will grab you by the helmet and say, "Man, you're playing like some trash. You need to get your ass back out there and start playing like this. This is not what we practice in football.
Right.
It's not what we did in practice. What are you doing?"
Right.
That's why I respected Tony Dungy. I mean, what do you think about what is that head coach of the Bears? They said the same thing with Mike Ditka. I don't know. I've never watched Ditka coach, but they said he was a hell of a coach with the
Yeah,
Bears.
he was very hands-on, yellow, grabbing players by their face mask. Yeah, he went hard.
I mean, sometimes you need that because, like you said, they don't demand you. If you got a soft voice and you going in there trying to talk to your players, they're gonna look at you and be like, "Man, this nigga here, we gonna do what we want." And you can't have a coach like that. These coaches now in the NBA, a lot of the besides Gary Popovich, a lot of these other coaches man are just so soft, man, and you can't win championships being soft. And I
Right.
think the best coach right now in these playoffs is Monty Williams, man. I don't see any other coaches. Well, I mean, if you look at Doc Rivers, he's up and down, but you don't know what to expect from Doc Rivers. But
Right.
he was a hell of a coach, but he just needs to, get back to that 2008 championship Doc Rivers. He needs to stop allowing his guys to tell him what they want to do, and he needs to start telling his guys what he wants to do.
Right.
I feel like Doc Rivers loses my respect that because you can't just say, "Oh, guys, we're not playing well. We need to do this," and then your guys are like, "Well, coach, we're
Right.
we're winning games by doing it the way we want to do." But you could be blowing teams out every game if you do it the way I do it. So,
Right.
like I said, I just feel like he's just a decent coach that was put into a good system, but I don't know. It's the same thing with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians was what with Tampa Bay and Indianapolis and Steelers, and he got 5 championships off of what?
Right.
I mean, it's his players, and like I said, you let me know how many great coaches you would have if they didn't have the stars that they had on their team. I think the only coach that would ever be great that has stars is Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson can go into any organization and coach them, and I think that they will win titles. You can give him any piece and he can win a title. I can't say that for other coaches.
Right.
I mean, do you know any other coaches that you think if you put them in a scheme fit or in a different organization that they can win championships? In
Nope.
any sport? I don't see any.
Not at all. I
Now,
can't think of any.
yeah, I don't either, Hughes. I mean, I'm thinking of it right now. That's why I'm paused because I'm like, I'm thinking, and it's really none, and that's what's sad because if you got you might as well not even have a coach at all. If you got a team running its own self with what it
Right.
has, you might as well just have like the assistant coaches be there and just keep that slot vacant. Let them, call their own timeouts. Let them substitute their own selves. Let themselves get their own minutes and go from there.
Right.
Because the way that they're playing, these teams shouldn't be that. These teams have all this talent, but they're not playing to their expectations. And do you think that that's a coach thing, or do you think that that's a chemistry thing when that happens?
I go on a coach.
Because look at the Clippers. That's a perfect example. The Clippers. Look at Tyronn Lue. You got the greatest defender of this generation in the NBA playoffs, and he's not living up to his expectations. You got one of the best shooters in Paul George, and he's not playing the way he's supposed to. And it's just like, what are you doing as a head coach to change that? They're doing the same thing they've been doing, and you think that that's going to win games?
Right.
Kawhi Leonard has been he was on defensive player of the year 3 times in a row. Paul George has made all defensive first team 5 years in a row. Paul George can shoot. He's been on the All-Star team. Kawhi Leonard has won 2 championships. Rajon Rondo's won titles. So what are you saying to these guys or doing to these guys that's making them not, close out the games at the way that they're supposed to?
Right.
That's
Very psychological, man. Like I said, on the NBA level, we may have to do maybe another show specifically about I don't know, college or other sports. But like in baseball, is the manager really coaching? Not really. Just giving them advice and cheering them on. So with the coaches, especially for the NBA, they do have a tall task. So it's amazing that the ones that they actually listen to, because most of them, they don't listen to their coaches. They think they know it all. And then they eventually, get fired.
Yeah, and that's what I'm like. You're firing them because their players don't respect what they're doing. Where it's hard to respect them because they've only, coached but so long. These guys don't even get a full year of coaching before they get fired. They just fired the Trailblazers head coach, Terry Stotts. They just fired the Toronto Raptors head coach, Nick Nurse. And then they just fired Boston's head coach, Brad Stevens, because he became the president now of basketball relations. So it's just like these coaches have been in the league for 4 years. I mean, that's not enough time to turn around a team, man. I mean,
right.
They don't even get to say so of who they can bring on the team. They just given what they gotten there, and then you're hoping that they can win championships with it. It doesn't work that way, man. It doesn't take. It's not like they're God where they could create the world in 7 days. They need time to be able to know everybody's strengths and weaknesses and everybody's, attitude, so that they can adjust on how they should coach this team. Because you can't come into the locker room being a soft-spoken person and think that that's gonna help you win championships or win games. It's not. They're just gonna look at you, shrug their shoulders. Say, all right, I'm in the lineup, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play my 38 minutes, and then I'm going to sit down for the rest of the game.
Right. Get that paycheck.
Yeah. They're like, you just another average person here. You just here because they need somebody to fill in this spot because we don't have a coach. Like, we coach that. You lose everything, man. You lose. And like I said, I don't think that this year's NBA is a good one, only because it's just like, the stars, the people that you expect that are there, you never would have seen them in the playoffs. You don't expect the Atlanta Hawks to be in the next round. You don't expect the Phoenix Suns to make it as far as they did. You don't expect the Utah Jazz to have the number 1 seed through the whole playoff. So it just says a lot. I mean, Quinn Snyder's a hell of a coach, and the only reason why I like Quinn Snyder is because he played on that Utah Jazz team with Karl Malone and Jeff and John Stockton. So he understands that there's a lot more to making that roster, because you ain't no bum if you make the roster. There must be something that the coach sees in you for you to make the team, because there's 100 people that try out, but out of those 100 people, 15 make it. So that the coach sees in you that he must like for him to pick you out of those 100 players. So that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting though. Interesting to see as the playoffs move on. What do coaches do?
Exactly.
I'm gonna be paying attention.
And like I said, to close it out, I just feel like at the end of the day, players need to hold the coach responsible, and the coach needs to hold the players responsible, and they need to have relationships on and off the court or on and off the field. If you want to have a successful organization, that's where it starts with. I'm not saying be your coach's best friend or be your player's best friend, but I am saying put an impact in their life. Call them every once in a while. Go have dinner with them every once in a while. Go eat lunch with them, every now and then, just to, make sure that they're humble, make sure that, you got their back, and make sure that you are always there if they need you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I think that should happen, because that's what makes the organization successful. That's what makes somebody want to play for you, when you do that, rather than just show up to practice, do what they do, and then be ready to go home, And with that being said, you guys, we want you guys to continue to keep watching us. We want you guys to continue to keep, supporting us, continue to keep subscribing, and continue to keep tuning in, because we still got more to come down the line, and we still got more better evidence and things to give you guys that we feel is definitely going to blow you away. And this was just one of the topics. And next week's topics, we'll be discussing players' impacts on the teams and players, roles and owners' roles as far as how they should do things in the industry, because a lot of owners are just, they'll take the cheapest guy that they can to make money and go with it and don't care what the aspect is of it, as long as it's making them money
Right.
to keep the budget. That's what happens. I think that's another topic you guys are going to discuss, but that's for another day. But we're glad that you guys are tuning in, watching us, and continue to keep supporting. And we love you guys for subscribing. And we always gonna bring you the real, the best way we know how.
Peace.